And to Israel, the Ark of the Covenant represented the visible presence of the invisible God in the midst of his people. In other words, when God moved, watch this, when God moved, they had to watch that. They had to watch the Ark of the Covenant, because when God moved, they were to move. And when God stopped, they were to stop. We would do well when we face some crisis times in our lives, or when we need direction in our life, to learn to be sensitive to the moving of the Lord in and around us. It is a fact that God loves you and that he will show you what he is doing. Do I have a witness in the house? But you got to watch where he's going. In other words, you got to keep your eye on him. Do I have a witness in the house? You got to watch God, but not only watch God, but you got to follow God. When they saw the Ark of the Covenant move, they were to, watch this, leave their place and go after it. Not only were they to watch God, but they were to move when he moved. In other words, they were to pursue God. Oh, y'all not feeling that. Here's a lesson. Here's a lesson. Touch neighbor, say neighbor. Here's a lesson. It isn't enough to know what God is doing. There comes a time when you got to leave your place and go after him. This means then that you and I got to leave our comfort zone. Israel was about to follow the ark. Israel was about to follow the ark through a river that was over a mile wide in this area. And that could not have been easy, but it was still necessary for them to follow the ark through the river in order to get to the promised land. Here's the point. God never intended for us to stay where we are. Anybody here know that God is a progressive God? Y'all listen to that. Y'all listen to that. There are a whole lot of folk who want to say, I wish the church would go back to the way it was. Well, God moved back then, but you need to understand that he's moving right now. Here's the point. I don't want to be where God was. I want to be where God is. Do I have a witness in the house? God moved back then, but God also said, behold, I'm going to do a new thing in you. And if God's going to do a new thing, I want to be where God is, not where God was. But here's another thing. They had to follow a command. They said the people were told to sanctify yourselves. And this referred to being sure that they were clean and holy. For Israel, this meant ritualistic washing, the washing of their clothes and the washing of their bodies. They were to put away anything that was displeasing to the Lord. They were to examine themselves and get ready for the Lord to do something great in their lives. And for us, this means to set aside all those things that would hinder us from receiving the promised possession. Y'all not feeling that yet? Touch your neighbor, say, neighbor, there's some things you got to get rid of. No. There are some things that you got. There are some folk that you need to kick to the curb. There are some issues that you need to deal with in order to receive what God has for you. And if you and I ever expect to get past the Jordans to get to the place of promise in our lives, we're going to have to learn that one of the first things we must do is to examine our own lives. Do I have a witness in the house? Listen. If there's something wrong with my car, I ain't got no business looking under Bobby Smith's hood to find out what's wrong with my car. I know some of y'all don't want to hear that, but I'm being real. If there's something wrong with my car, I need to open up the hood of my car and look to see what's wrong under the hood of my car. Do I have a witness in the house? Anybody in the house knows that it takes 24 hours a day to deal with yourself. And if it takes 24 hours a day to deal with yourself, you ain't got time to deal with nobody else. Do I have a witness? Here's the thing. It also involved commitment. For the message to the Israelites reminded them that getting across the Jordan did not rest upon their shoulders, but it was on the Lord's. It was his plan to get them over, and it was his problem. Y'all missed that. You know, he makes them a promise and tells them that he will bring them through in a powerful fashion. Notice here that God commits himself to bringing his people across the Jordan. All that was required of Israel was that they trust God. My God. You see, if God could be trusted in those days to keep his promises, is there anybody here who knows that you can trust God today? Well, often we are unable to get past the obstacles in our lives because we live a life that exhibits a deep lack of faith in the promises of God. How do we know this? Because of the worry and the doubt that marks the lives of the people of God. We worry about tomorrow, yet the Lord said don't worry about tomorrow because tomorrow will take care of itself. We worry about material things, yet the Lord has promised that I will supply all your needs according to his riches in glory. We worry about facing various things in our life, yet the Lord has promised I will never leave you, nor will I forsake you. We worry about over so many things, yet the Lord tells us that all we have to do is to be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto God. The bottom line is this, baby, we serve an all-powerful God. He's an all-knowing God. He's an all-present God. He knows what you're going through. He knows everything there is to know about you. He even knows more about you than what you know about yourself. So here is what he says to you. The just shall live by faith. Touch your neighbor, tell your neighbor, keep the faith. Keep the faith, keep the faith, keep the faith, keep the faith. Keep the faith. But here's the second thing. The second thing is this. Not only do we need to look at, examine the message, but the second thing we need to do is expect a miracle. Expect a miracle. Here's the problem. Here's the problem they faced. The children of Israel were facing a big problem. The river at this point was over a mile wide, and there were 2 million people who had to cross, and yet the Lord wanted them to go over. They couldn't build a bridge because there wasn't enough time nor the materials. They couldn't transport everybody over by boats. There were no boats, and they would be sitting on the docks for their enemies. There was only one way around their problem, and that was to go through. Listen, have you ever sized up your problem and thought about how big your problem was? And maybe you looked at it and came to the conclusion, there's no way around this. There's no way over this. There's no way past this problem. I suppose all of us have been like them 10 spies that Moses dealt with, when they were spying out the land of Canaan with Caleb and Joseph. We have sized up our problem and think that it's more than what we can face. In fact, our problem was the same one we always have when we face a difficult situation. Here's what the problem is. Ready for this? We forget about God. When we see only problems, God only sees solutions. When we look at things and say there's no way, God looks at the problem and says, follow me, I got the plan. Here was the plan. Here was the plan. God said, when the feet of the priests enter the Jordan, I'm going to part the waters and lead you through on dry ground. Y'all missed that. Here was the catch in the plan, though. And the catch in the plan was that the waters would not part until the priests who were carrying the ark stepped into the water. In other words, here's your shout. Touch your neighbor, here's your shout. It took a step of faith. Y'all not feeling that yet? Come on, go back with me. When Israel left Egypt and they came to the Red Sea, all Moses was told to do was to wave his staff over the sea and the waters will part. Well, this is no longer the Moses generation, this is the Joshua generation. And in Joshua's generation, the Lord said, no, you got to walk by faith.